Well, Rob, I will pass the mic to you then.
Great, thank you so much. Welcome everyone to the inaugural Master Planning Open House for the Port Gamble Forest Heritage Park. I'd like to begin with a land acknowledgement. The Kitsap Peninsula is the home of sovereign Indian nations, namely the Suquamish and Port Gamble S'Klallam tribes. And also like to say, what a difference a few years can make. When I first joined the Board of County Commissioners in 2011, the dream of acquiring the property was just pivoting from the legacy project concept to one that was focused on land conservation in partnership with the Port Gamble S'Klallam and Squamish tribes, Forterra, Great Peninsula Conservancy, and a host of coalition members that raised community awareness, donations, and I might add, marched as trees and jellyfish in a few local parades. And the fact that we're successful now leads us to this time when we can continue to dream and imagine the landscape for years to come. And we all had ideas and hopes and aspirations, the continued uses that were supported during the Pope ownership, cultural resources, birding habitat, active recreation, camping, gathering spaces, educational opportunities, and the longest, I would argue, the longest off-road segment of the Sound to Olympics Trail. Now, the success was made possible by numerous donors, but also the coalition leadership and members exploring various tools to help make it happen. And the one tool that was needed to cross the finish line of owning the land in perpetuity was a timber deed. And that meant we could remove from the cost equation the value of timber and leave just the value of land and its development rights. And what that means is that the 3,500 acres that currently make up the park and used to be managed by Pope Resources as a tree farm has a new life ahead. When Kitsap County acquired the land in 2017, Pope Resources reserved the rights in the land transfer agreement to conduct one final timber harvest. And that agreement stipulates that Pope has 25 years to conduct those harvests. And once the trees have been cut and replantings are deemed successful, management of that land fully rests with Kitsap County Parks. And again, this arrangement helps secure and preserve the land as a park in perpetuity. Another exciting development is that there are efforts on multiple fronts to raise funding with the goal of exercising the timber deed and to purchase some of the remaining trees. One is a partnership with former Kitsap Forest and Bay Coalition members in Forterra, and the other is a community-led effort by a group called Our Forest Fund. Now, these are not Kitsap County government-led efforts, but I and county staff are definitely collaborating. So I'm so glad you're all here. That's enough. You don't need to hear from me anymore, but I'll close with the fact that I will forever be grateful for each and every volunteer and donor that made this possible. And I'm thankful that the Kitsap Public Facilities District agreed to fund this master planning effort and that you've taken time out of your schedule to be part of the process this evening. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And right now, it's my pleasure and honor to introduce to you Alex Wisniewski, who is our somewhat new, a couple months into it, our new Parks Director for Kitsap County Parks. And I'm so thankful that Alex has joined the county family and is part of the team. And this is just an exciting time. So Alex, to you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Gelder. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Good evening and welcome to our 123 and counting guests so far. This is quite the turnout and really fantastic. We're so grateful that you all took time out of your busy schedules to be with us tonight, for your interest in this project and for the future of the park. Tonight marks the first public meeting and kicks off the public process to develop a master plan for Port Gamble Forest Heritage Park. As a brand new director to Kitsap County Parks, I am privileged to have inherited this amazing opportunity. Developing master plans is one of my favorite parts of the job, as it brings together two critical pieces to creating parks: community involvement and really park dreaming, quote unquote. What I mean by this is that tonight is the beginning of a planning process that will take us throughout all of 2021. It will bring us together multiple times to conceptualize what the park may become. These public meetings are meant to build upon each other as we go along, and that will bring us together to spark creativity, align ideas, formulate support, and ultimately provide direction for the future of the park. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. Your voice, your thoughts, your ideas are important and will help guide us forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. And with that, I'll go ahead and introduce our team for the master planning effort. So on the design side, our team is led by Fisher Bauma Partnerships. And tonight you'll hear from Sandy Fisher and Jeff Bauma. With them is Anchor QEA to support on the environmental and public engagement process, Lynn Turner and John Small, as well as our economist, Barbara Wise with Highland Economics. We have a team of volunteers, our steering committee members, who you will also see tonight, Mark Shorn, Don Willott, and Catherine Thompson. And with me at OAC Services, the project management team, Judy Sawin and Todd Thiel. Go ahead, next slide. So I just want to give a quick introduction of this project and the goal for tonight's meeting, and then I'll turn it over to Lynn. So for an overview of this project, the intent of this master planning process is to create an inspiring master plan that will assess the economic benefits of the existing park and trail improvements, understand recreational and tourism opportunities that these attractions, as well as other possible park developments, could be leveraged for larger opportunities in the region, and establish the framework to restore this park to a natural, healthy forest. There's been over a decade of community efforts, as Commissioner Gelder has expressed, that have brought us to this point, which is really an exciting, just the beginning of what is to become of this park. With the purchase of these 4 blocks of land totaling 3,500 acres, this is one of the largest county parks in the country. Our master planning process will occur over approximately 12 months. The first 3 months have already passed, and that's really just been to bring the team up to speed by reviewing historical documents. The intent is to balance recreation and conservation while providing economic benefit to the county and region. The goals for tonight's meeting, while most of you on this call are probably very familiar with the history of past efforts, is to establish some context for the rest of you who maybe aren't aware of everything that's gone into the planning to get to where we are. We'll also discuss the steps of the master planning process and what all will be involved in the development of our master plan. We'll review the proposed vision and goals, which will drive our master planning efforts. But up first, we're going to outline what you can expect for opportunities to engage in the master planning effort. And with that, I'll turn it over to Lynn to review our schedule with respect to public engagement.
Thanks, David. Hi, everyone. So what you see on screen here is a visual of the schedule for the next basically a year of the master planning process. Our planning is going to be throughout 2021, and then we're expecting that it'll be completed and adopted by the Kitsap County Commissioners in early 2022. We're planning to have 4 public meetings total, and you can see that those next 3 line up basically with a time to talk about what you want to see in the park, alternatives that we can consider for the park, and then providing feedback on the master plan. Now, in addition to the public meetings, we have a lot of information for you in the website, which includes an interactive map that right now just shows park trails, but the site and the map are getting updated with more information as we move through the phases. There'll be a lot more on there just shortly. And we'll also be adding a new form that'll let you comment as we go forward. But just to take a look at the plan for tonight first, we've been in this opening session, and next we're going to hear about the master planning process and kind of what's been learned so far by the master planning team. And then we're going to have some breakout sessions where we'll talk about your questions and your ideas, and then we'll come back together as a group, we'll do some polling questions, and we'll wrap up for the night. Note that tonight we want to focus really on our big picture vision, our goals, our guiding principles. We know that, it's a lot easier to plan our route if we know where we want to get to at the end, right? So the Port Gamble Stewardship Committee has already developed a proposed vision and goals that we're going to be looking at in a little more depth tonight. We also tonight want to talk about some of the opportunities, some of the constraints that might lie ahead on our path so that we can plan for those as well. And then in the next public meeting this summer, that's when we're going to be talking in a little more detail about the specific uses that might be included in the park, how the park property might be managed. So looking ahead in our meeting tonight, I want to give you a preview of a couple opportunities for your feedback so that you can kind of be thinking about those as you hear the information in the next section. First, we're going to have some small group breakout sessions. And in those, you're going to be with a facilitator and a few other attendees. We'll have someone to take notes, and you'll have a chance to turn on your video, take yourself off mute, provide your questions and your input about the master planning process. And then a little later in the meeting, we're also going to have this fun interactive poll. You can use your laptop or your mobile device or your tablet. You can participate by text or a web browser. It's like American Idol where you get to vote. I'll give you a little more detail on the polling later, but as a preview, I just kind of wanted to let you know about it in case you want to find this web address that you see here or get your phone handy or just have what you need on hand. Plenty of time before we do this. Finally, if you have thoughts or questions as we go tonight, you can put those into the chat box. If you go to the bottom of the screen, there should be a chat function. Anything you type in the chat box tonight, we're probably not going to have time to respond to all those questions tonight, but we do appreciate your input. We're going to incorporate it all into either the next stage of the planning, the next information that comes out. So everything that you provide tonight in the breakout sessions, the polls, the notes in the chat, we're going to wrap all that up. And then also, as I mentioned earlier, in addition to the group discussions and the poll questions tonight, there's going to be some comment forms coming on the website throughout the master planning process. So lots more chances to comment. We want to hear from you the whole time. So now I'll pass the mic to Jeff Bauma to talk a little more about the master plan.
Thanks, Lynn. Good evening. My name is Jeff Bauma. I'll be presenting, along with a couple other people, the preliminary findings of our assessment and inventory efforts for the park. So to start off, I want to start with a slide of images that depict the character of this amazing landscape. Even though it's been used for timber production for the last 150 years, the land and vegetation support a variety of wildlife, mammals, birds, amphibians, insects. The land is essentially a long ridge running north to south, and there are a couple of large wetlands and a few streams within the park. Timber harvest has also resulted in tree stands of varying ages from a few years old up to 45 years old. Another thing that harvesting has done is resulted in creating views of both the Cascade Range and the Olympic Mountains as seen in this particular photo. It's really quite an amazing place for those of you who have not had a chance to experience it yet. And then finally, I'd like to recognize Don Willott. He's on the steering committee. Many of you probably know him. I want to thank him for providing most of the photos that you'll see in this evening's presentation. So the Port Gamble, S'Klallam, and Suquamish tribes have used the area for fishing, gathering, and hunting for at least 1,000 years, if not many more. Pioneers arrived in the 1850s. A sawmill was founded in 1853 by Pope and Talbot and was in operation until 1995. And tonight you'll hear the names Pope and Talbot, Pope Resources, Rayonier. They all refer to the timber company, which owns Port Gamble town and which sold the land that is now the park. The timber company has graciously allowed the land to be used for recreation for a number of decades. So this map provided by the county shows the park within the context of other parks in the county. You can see the park as the largest green shape towards the top of the map. It's one of 73 parks within the county and one of 6 heritage parks. A heritage park is a specific designation. It's one that's primarily undeveloped natural area with environmentally sensitive areas preserved and with recreation focused primarily on trail use and passive recreation. So an amazing amount of effort, time, resources has been invested in this project over the last 15 years. And we as a project team want to recognize that. The following summary and timeline don't adequately show the complexity of the cooperation that was required among all partners to make this park a reality. In 2007, Pope announced plans to divest land holdings in Kitsap County. They presented the opportunity as a string of pearls open space concept, which really drew the imagination of the community. In 2011, Kitsap Forest and Bay Coalition was formed. The Great Peninsula Conservancy played a key role facilitating this effort and the coalition. And the coalition also included the tribes, Kitsap County, Pope Resources, state agencies, businesses, local community groups such as North Kitsap Trails Association, and the Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance West Sound chapter. Forterra was the key fundraising leader for this coalition effort. So from 2011 to 2017, over $17 million was raised to acquire the land, nearly 30% of which came from funding from individual owners. And over the course of 3 years, from 2014 to 2017, 4 large areas or blocks of land totaling almost 3,500 acres were purchased to create what is now the park. So you can see these 4 large areas or blocks of land that I just mentioned. These are depicted on the map as the bright green and dark green blocks, the orange block and the blue block. The red area to the north is Port Gamble Town, owned by the Timber Company, which also owns the faded green areas adjacent to the park. The reason I talk about these blocks or areas is that each of these areas of land has different easements or deed restrictions, essentially rules, which limit the type of development that can occur on them as part of the purchase agreement. Also, in the 2 largest blocks, the Timber Company has retained the harvest rights for one more harvest, as mentioned, through the year 2042 or 21 more years. So let's look at each one of these areas in a little bit more detail. The shoreline block, purchased in 2014, included land and trees. Some tree thinning has occurred for the county's forest management plan. The focus of this area is really on trail and water-related recreation, as well as resource and habitat conservation. It's important to note that small structures are allowed if they have a shoreline focus. The eastern forest block, purchased in 2016, included the land only. That means that one more set of tree harvest is allowed in this area. This block has the least restrictions as far as recreation development. The Ride Park, about 177 acres, was purchased in 2017 and included the land and the trees. It's been selectively thinned over the last few years, and the focus of this is really on recreation. We'll talk about the mountain bike ride park in a moment. And then finally, the Western Forest Block. This purchase also included the land only, similar to the bright green Eastern Forest Block adjacent to it. One more set of tree harvests are allowed. The focus is on resource and habitat conservation. And one thing that's a little different than the Eastern Block is that no buildings are permitted within this area. So this simple timeline, also on our project website, focuses on the land acquisition, as well as the planning efforts associated with the park over the last 10 years or so. I'm not going to go into this in detail. The point is that there's been an ongoing planning effort by the Port Gamble Stewardship Committee and the county to date. And one of the things this master plan will do is take these efforts into account and reconcile, if necessary, these various plans. For those of you who might be unfamiliar, the Port Gamble Stewardship Committee is made up of members from the community representing various user or interest groups, and it's the official liaison with the county. They meet monthly and are responsible for much of the recent park planning, as well as on-the-ground installation and maintenance of the current trail system. So this master planning effort really begins with several approved projects within the park that are now in design, engineering, or permitting. They include the Sound Olympics Trail, the Mountain Bike Ride Park, 2 trailheads with parking, and while not within the park, but relevant due to its adjacency, the Port Gamble Town redevelopment plan by Rayonier to the north. So let's start with the STO, and I'm going to go through several slides pretty quick here. So we'll try to give you a chance to take a look at them. The Sound Olympics Trail will be a continuous, wide, paved, shared use path that will be a segment of the Great American Rail Trail, which crosses the United States. Within the park, the trail will be about 6 miles in length. So on this map, you can see that the trail crosses Washington State from east to west or west to east, either way. It's planned in some areas as shown in pink, and it's built in many more, which you can see in green. Next slide. The regional trail will connect Seattle via ferries to Kitsap County, as you can see in this center map, and then connect to the Olympic Peninsula via the Hood Canal Bridge to the west. Next slide. Within the park, the route was initially identified by the North Kitsap Trails Association. This feasibility study was done by the county in 2018. You can see on this diagram in the park, the initial route is indicated in blue and black. There's a secondary segment shown in green. Engineering and permitting on the northern half of these routes will occur between now and 2023, with construction scheduled to begin in 2 years. So the ride park is well on its way to becoming a reality. For those of you unfamiliar with what a ride park is, it's a place for mountain bike users that provides trails and obstacles, requiring a variety of skills and experience. It'll be located in the northwest corner of the park, as shown as the blue shape on this map. It has been designed, and construction is scheduled to start as early as this spring. The land acquisition from Pope Resources was funded by both the state RCO grant and through the Kitsap Forest and Bay project. The Kitsap Public Facilities District provided the funding for this current design, construction, and management, and the Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance West Sound chapter has been contracted to provide these items. You can see on this plan for the park the various levels of trail difficulty being provided: the easy, the moderate, the difficult. The park will also include parking, restrooms, an access road from the north from Port Gamble town, as well as being adjacent to the planned segment of the STO trail, which will be to the east of this map. 2 trailheads are currently under design and engineering. These aren't part of this master planning process, but will be integrated into the master plan. This project was also funded by the Kitsap Public Facilities District. It's currently in design and permitting, with construction scheduled in 2022. The 2 locations will be to the north at the ride park and to the south at Stottlemyre Road. The northern trailhead will include a restroom. Both trailheads will include signage or kiosks, and the Stottlemyre Road trailhead will include horse trailer parking. So as you likely know, Port Gamble town is located to the north of the park. Redevelopment of this historic town by Rayonier really provides an incredible opportunity for synergy in this project, meaning that this peninsula can become a destination with both the town and the park playing a role which will benefit each other. Rayonier has been preparing for redevelopment of the town for the last decade by revitalizing the commercial core, building a new high-tech sewer plant, performing an environmental cleanup in the bay and on the former mill site, and by filing a master plan and environmental impact statement with the county that will include at least 226 new residences, a new hotel, additional commercial, a new restaurant space, among other things. So changing gears just a little bit, we'd like to focus for a moment on the vision and goals of the park. These have been proposed by the park's Port Gamble Stewardship Committee. Part of the discussion we'd like to have this evening in the breakout groups is about these goals. For example, are they consistent with your values and that of the community? These goals are categorized by nature, shown in green, people, shown in blue, and economics, shown in yellow, but really they're all interrelated. These goals will inform specific objectives that we'll be working on and will guide the master planning process. Overall, we understand the need to balance conservation and recreation in this planning process. So I'm going to read the proposed vision. The park is focused on the quality of its diverse environment, wildlife, user experience, and recreation opportunities. The park is managed to ensure ecological, educational, and economic sustainability by attracting local and regional visitors while bringing compatible economic benefits to the area. The proposed goals are to promote wildlife habitat enhancement and regeneration, to promote a conservation ethic through outdoor recreation, to provide access for education, moving up to the upper right-hand corner of the slide, to improve the quality of life for users in the community, to provide access for physical and emotional health, to create a park and policies that support access and inclusion, to develop new facilities, to realize economic benefits of both recreation and conservation, and to plan for long-term success. So I'd now like to turn it over to Barbara to discuss demographics and economics.
Thanks, Jeff. So yeah, just a little more context from the human perspective. So a little bit of background in terms of the entire county population right now is about 272,000 people, but that's projected to grow over the next 20 years to roughly 323,000. So just important to think about the people in the future and what the total population will be when thinking about parks planning. And then on a more local scale, within 20 miles of the park, there are roughly 85,000 people that live within the near vicinity of the park. And assuming that may grow similarly to the county as a whole, that would be about 100,000 people in the next 20 years. And then one of the goals that Jeff mentioned is access, and part of access is transportation access. And census data indicates that countywide, about 5% of households lack access to a vehicle. So just a factor in terms of thinking about public transport and planning for the park. Next slide, please, Lynn. So in terms of recreation demand, as mentioned throughout this process, the master plan will be looking at different opportunities and recreation facilities and opportunities at the park. But in terms of past surveys and looks at what people in the county care about and what outdoor activities are most popular, by far, walking and running in parks and on trails takes the cake. Everybody across all demographics, people love that activity. So that's clearly a very popular activity, with other trail uses falling very near behind it. But in terms of numbers, there are approximately 10 million user days we estimate for walking or hiking in a park in the county, which will increase with population increase to potentially up to about 11.7 million by 2040. So a huge demand for trails. Biking, as Jeff mentioned, with the mountain bike park, and also equestrian use are really popular in the county. And then another consideration for access and equity across different demographic groups, different leisure activities tend to be popular in recreation activities. And statewide surveys indicate that while across all demographic groups, walking in a park and hiking on trails is the most popular, for people of color, leisure activities that are more for group settings like cookouts or family gatherings or general playing and relaxing are popular. So it's another consideration in thinking about venues at the park. Next slide, please, Lynn. And then finally, one of the pillars in planning also is thinking about the economics of the park, both for local residents and visitors. And so the goals kind of laid out all the different types of economic benefits that can be associated with parks. And so quality of life is really important, and that's related to economic vitality in terms of making Kitsap County a wonderful place to live and work and helping to attract and retain residents and businesses, but also in terms of attracting regional visitors who also spend money and support businesses and the local economy. And so those are different things we'll be looking at, and the benefits of different opportunities and ways of using the land in the park throughout this process. Thank you.
Thanks. This is John Small. one of the other things that we'll be doing today, today we'll be talking about kind of how the site gets developed and what gets built. But another really important part of the analysis during the master planning will be focused on where are the best places, which areas are most suitable for development of buildings and indoor uses, development of active recreation areas, and where it makes the most sense to focus on dispersed sort of passive outdoor uses and conservation. Some of this is going to be dictated by the deed restrictions, which Jeff mentioned are different for each of the 4 parcels. We'll also look at the site in terms of the context. There are, particularly for buildings and active recreation, there may be things we want to avoid, like steep slopes, wetlands, streams, to stay out of the buffers and keep some distance between buildings or really active recreation and those types of features. But there are other uses or features that might make more sense, such as buildings, restrooms, to be closer to emergency access, have access to utilities, and be on good, well-drained soil so that we can build septic systems and have an easier time putting in buildings. The other really important context in terms of this site is this temporal context. The idea that we have a young forest, no part of it is really more than 40 or 50 years old in terms of the age of the trees. And there's also going to be additional harvest. We know, there's 3 or 4 sections that are already approved for harvest. There are efforts underway to buy back some of the trees, but there will be most likely additional harvest. So as we plan the siting of individual features in the park, we need to keep in mind how the park will continue to change. In addition to harvest, we want to have some input on the effects that climate change will have on trees. We're seeing a lot of change in forest composition already due to climate change. And, as we develop a conservation strategy, we'll build it around the best existing habitat. We have some fabulous wetlands and stream corridors, but we'll also focus on building resiliency so that if there are windstorms and blowdowns, if there are diseases in the trees, we have a forest that's resilient and able to recover from those kinds of things. And I'm going to turn it back to Jeff to talk about some of the ways the site is used currently.
Thanks, John. This is Jeff again. I'll spend a few more minutes discussing current users and uses, as well as high-level opportunities, and then we will have our breakout group discussions where we can start to hear from you. So trail use is the dominant recreation activity in the park, and the trails are used for a variety of activities by walkers, hikers, runners, birders, bikers, and equestrians. It's estimated that approximately 20,000 people a year are using the trails. And there's a number of events over the course of the year, whether it be races, runs, or rides within the trail park system. Next slide. If you've been to the park recently, you've probably seen or used this map. There is a network of over 65 miles of trails currently. This includes wider logging roads. As mentioned before, the timber company has allowed community use over decades. These trails have also been built over the decades by a volunteer workforce. This volunteer workforce continues to provide maintenance coordinated through the county's Port Gamble Stewardship Committee. Most of the trails are dirt, or all of them are dirt and gravel surfacing with varying width. There's currently a pretty simple sign system for wayfinding. Part of this master plan, we'll take a look at that and standardize a sign system for the park. There's currently 5 trailheads, most being on the east side of the park. And there's actually 1.4 miles of official water trail in Gamble Bay, adjacent to the shoreline block to the east. As far as this next phase of planning the project, we're going to be starting to look at the suitability of the park for specific features and programs. Opportunities can be projects related to public access, whether it's recreation and transportation. They could be related to conservation and assisted regeneration. So how do we take, as John was mentioning, this forest that's been used for timber harvest for the last 150 years and transition it to a more diverse national forest or natural forest? Opportunities are obviously related to recreation, whether that's outdoor, indoor, special events, active or passive, keeping in mind that the indoor and active opportunities are going to be quite limited due to the restrictions and requirements in the purchase agreements. In addition to projects, opportunities present themselves as programs or policies. These could be related to research and education, whether it be scientific, environmental education, climate related, or partnerships with institutions and nonprofits. Schools from elementary up through the university could use this park as an outdoor laboratory, for example. Opportunities may be related to economic and community development, whether that's job training opportunities, outdoor leadership, cultural and heritage conservation, or really marketing this peninsula as a destination through the Visitor and Tourism Bureau, and looking at ways to promote eco and agritourism on the peninsula as well. A specific opportunity that I want to address tonight that Commissioner Rob Gelder mentioned in his opening is the opportunity to purchase timber rights that were not included in the recent land acquisitions. Land purchase agreements between Forterra and the Timber Company for both the eastern and western forest blocks allow for the purchase of those timber rights. There are some requirements and stipulations associated with that. There are efforts on multiple fronts to raise funding with the goal of purchasing some of these remaining trees. And the master plan will begin to evaluate some of these tree stands for potential buyback as they are related to other things being planned in the park. And then finally, a goal of this master plan is to identify funding and revenue generating strategies that will help pay for the management and maintenance of such a large piece of land. These strategies that we will explore may include things such as training partnerships, research fees, land leases, event concessions, sustainable resource harvesting, carbon offsets, clean energy production, and low impact camping, lodging, and other recreation opportunities on the site. So with that, that wraps up the overview of the planning context for the project, and Lynn will now provide more information about the breakout group discussions.
Thanks, Jeff. That was great. So much info. I hope we're ready to talk. Okay, so what's going to happen next is we're going to be moving into these smaller breakout sessions. Obviously, this is a little easier when we get to be in person, but hopefully it works just like magic, even though we're all in this virtual world. So Judy is setting us up. You shouldn't have to choose a room. You'll get a confirmation button that you have to click to actually join your room. Then you'll be with a facilitator who will get everything going. One other hint I want to give you is that towards the end of our time, there will be a box popping up to alert you that you have a 5-minute warning before the end. Don't click that. If you click it too early, you'll be booted out of your room. So Judy will bring us all back together at the end, but you'll get that 5-minute warning. No need to click it. Your facilitator will, keep going. You'll kind of talk and have a report back. So we are doing good on time. I think that we're going to plan 25 minutes for our breakout sessions. So Judy, I think we're looking good. Whenever you're ready to send us, everybody, when you see that join button for your room, you can click on it, but then don't click anything to come back until your facilitator tells you to.
Okay, I'm sending everybody over, and I've got 2 people that just jumped in, so I'll throw them in as soon as they get logged in.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay. Well, I think that worked pretty well. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you all had good group discussions. I know our group was really great. So let me try to reshare my screen so that we can all look at things together again. All right, thanks for bearing with me here through the complicated tech as well. All right. So next up, we get to do that fun poll that I mentioned earlier. So if you did not get your phone or your tablet ready earlier, this is the time to try to have it handy now. I'm going to walk us through what we're doing a few times here. So if you don't catch it the first time, don't panic. All right. So your first option for the polls is if you want to participate by texting on your phone, you're going to first open a session by sending a text message to the phone number 22333. And then in the body of the text message, you're going to type this keyword we have up here that's my name, LYNNT 535. Once you press send, then you're going to get a confirmation message that you're now part of our session. And then from there, you can just reply to that text message with your response to each poll as I open them up. If you do it right now, there won't be a poll open yet, but it'll welcome you. If you decide to use the text, there could be some standard text messaging rates if you don't have an unlimited texting plan. So that's one option, and I'll review that one more time in a second here. Your other option is if you don't want to text, if you want to use a web browser on either your mobile device or a computer or a tablet, then you can open your browser and visit the address that, Judy, are you putting that in the chat for us as well so people can copy it? Okay.
Yes,
So
I am.
it's that pollev.com, and it has that same keyword after a slash LYNNT 535. And then same thing, you'll get welcomed in, and then you can wait for the polls to appear as I open them up, and you can submit your responses. So I'm just going to hold here for a minute. If people need to copy that web link or anything, I'm going to review the text option one more time because that one can be a little confusing. So if you're going to do the text, the phone number you're texting to is that 5-digit number, 22333. And then the body of your text message is just going to say LYNNT 535. And when you send that message, you'll get a confirmation welcoming you into the session. After you get that welcome message, when I open a poll, you can just reply to the text message. So what we're going to be doing is everyone's input will be displayed on the screen in what's known as a word cloud. If you haven't seen this before, it kind of shifts as we get more input. As more people input the same word, that word gets bigger. So it's kind of, you see what some of the popular answers are, but you also see what all the answers are. A few things I want to say. The service has really good privacy. I can't see your phone numbers. You're not going to receive any follow-up text messages outside this presentation. It's just open for this and then it's gone. When I do open those polls, it works best if you can make each of your answers one word or two if you really need it. But if you put a space between those two words, they're going to come through as two separate answers. So like if you say mountain biking and you put a space between them, each one is going to come in separately. So if you wanted to say mountain biking, you should make it one word. Or if you just say biking, it's one word. Okay, so hopefully this is working for folks. Judy, are you seeing consternation in the chat at all? Should I explain it one more time?
No, I mean, everything's up there. The two options are in the
Okay.
chat, but I haven't gotten anything.
Okay, so I'm gonna go slow on the first one and give us lots of time because I know this can be weird if you've never done it before. We're gonna do 5 questions in all, and I'll go slower on the first one and then we'll kind of pick it up from there. So one more time, you got the text option or you have the web option. Choose your poison. So I'm gonna open this up. Oh, we're getting responses already. Okay, so in 1 or 2 words, what would be your favorite recreational activity in this park in the future? And so if you haven't been able to respond yet, You can just open that text session or go to that web link and type in your answer. And you see it shifting and shifting. And that's just because people are continuing to respond. It will become static, so you can see it. We're also going to be able to collect this afterwards, and we'll send it out so everybody can see what the answers are. None of the answers are going to be associated with your names or your phone numbers or anything. This is all we'll see, so don't worry. It's very private. I think probably a lot of us could have seen this coming, but hiking is a very popular answer so far. Biking as well. That's definitely the two biggest that I would have expected. There's also some big ones coming in here that I've also seen happening out there. Really a good range of activities that people want to do in this park. I love it. I know it's a little disorienting with this many people responding. Hopefully it's not making you ill as it shifts. We'll give this first one a few more minutes just because I know it takes a little getting used to. If anyone's having trouble, maybe say so in the chat and I'll walk through the options one more time. They are shown at the top of the screen as well, but I can always say it a different way if it's been confusing the way I've said it so far. Love it.
The question, Lynn, is they want to know if they can do more than one.
You can. I opened it up so that you can respond 2 different times. So you can give us your top 2 things to do in the future park. Okay. So I'm gonna just give us 30 more seconds on this one. So if you have any last answers, let's get them in there.
Larry.
Oh,
Larry.
Sandy, you're not on mute right now.
I'm sorry.
No worries.
Go in there.
Judy, maybe you can help her out. All right. That was fun. I'm gonna stop this one and let's go to the next. Okay, the second question coming up. In 1 or 2 words, what do you think is the most important priority for the master plan process? That's what we've been talking about mostly tonight, the master planning. Again, if you can keep your answer to just 1 word or 2 words. Looks like a lot of responses for conservation so far. High priority for a lot of people. Also seeing a lot of recreation and accessibility and habitat. I love how creative a lot of people are getting here with putting multiple words together. I know, I always find it really hard to restrict myself to 1 word too. And again, a really good diversity of responses. All right, top priority for the master plan process. Okay, 20 seconds and I'm gonna stop this one. We'll go on to our 3rd question. Okay, all right, cutting that one off. We're gonna go ahead. All right, our 3rd question. In 1 or 2 words, what is the biggest challenge facing the planning process? And I know we asked some of you this in the breakout sessions at least, and I heard some really good answers, but if you can try to narrow that down to 1 word, what you think the biggest challenge is. And some of these that are coming through are the same ones we heard in our breakout, for sure. Heard a lot of funding, permitting, the additional harvest. I see conservation coming up here again too. Some of those conflicts between priorities and different, use preferences. We heard some about that. Okay, we'll just give it 20 more seconds on this one. That's a great input. Okay, we're going to go on to our next question. In 1 or 2 words, what is the best way to give everyone a sense of belonging in the park? I suspect someone may be responding disc golf on every question. I think we have a real fan there. I think I've seen it come up early on every question here. A lot of responses on access, outreach, accessibility, volunteering, listening, kindness. That's always my go-to. Compromise, very nice. Okay, we'll give this one 20 more seconds. Get those answers in. Best way to give everyone a sense of belonging. No, I lost track of my time. I think that was probably 20 seconds. Okay, let's move on to our last question. Okay, choose 1 or 2 words that best describe your ideal vision for the future of the park. Your ideal future vision for the park. There's that disc golf. I knew it would come quick. Honestly, I think somebody's teasing me now and just putting it in multiple times. I promised our fellow facilitators here that I would just sort of prattle on so that there wasn't silence while this was happening. I think they're probably regretting letting me do that now. All right. Looks like that one's slowing a bit. Let's give it 20 more seconds and I'll actually try to pay attention this time to the time. Oh, we're getting so many different answers. They're getting small. We'll make sure everybody gets to see these afterwards, though. Okay. This was super fun. Thank you all so much for participating in that. I really like that a lot. Okay, so let's come back to our presentation and kind of talk about what comes up next. So we are, as you probably noticed, gathering up all the input from everyone we can hear from. Throughout the meeting, we've gotten input, through the survey, the poll, the comment box. Boy, I just can't talk anymore. Too much prattling. The chat box, the polls, your work in the breakout sessions, everything that everybody told our facilitators and we wrote down. We're gathering all of that up. We're going to take a look at how to incorporate it into the next steps with the master planning. We're going to be putting out a frequently asked questions to respond to some of the questions that we collected tonight. We'll also be using some of your questions just to gather more information, to see what we should look into next, to see what we should present to you at the next meeting this summer. I'm sorry that it's kind of hard to give everyone enough time to say everything that's on their minds with this large of a group, but we really appreciate your feedback. I think if everybody can mute, we're getting a little bit of an echo here. Okay, that's better. Thank you. So yeah, I'm sorry that if you weren't able to speak, you know, we were a little time limited. We still would really appreciate your feedback. So we're going to send out a survey to those who provided their email address. If you did not register for this meeting by providing your email address on the website, you can still go there and do that now. We're going to try to get your thoughts about this meeting, any topics that you want to hear about in the future meetings, any other feedback you have for us. If you want to stay up to date, there, like I say, there is a short form. It looks like this that you can fill out on the website. The website link's right here. It's also in the chat. And then David, are you with us here? Can I pass the mic back to you for some of those closing remarks?
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you. So as discussed, everyone, tonight's meeting is the first of 4 planned public meetings, along with further opportunities yet to be announced. Again, if you have not already registered for updates, please visit portgambleforestpark.com and register for further updates. We will provide some contact information on the website, as well as a recording of tonight's session, the frequently asked questions, and these word clouds cleaned up. We'll begin providing monthly newsletter updates to everyone registered starting at the end of the month, along with invitations for future meetings and other announcements for engagement opportunity. I do want to thank everyone for participating tonight. We had a fantastic turnout. This is probably the best I've seen in any project, and we definitely look forward to hearing your thoughts and working with you all as we move forward in this process. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Good job, guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. It was a great meeting. Glad I was involved. Good night.
Good night.